What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Wanted to talk to you about our friends over at PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching sports. This app is really easy to use. You just pick more or less on a few player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your cash on a single lineup. Best of all, PrizePicks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use the promo code PFF and download the app now. Let's go to the Eagles next. In the first round, they traded up one spot to get the sliding Jihad Campbell, although after the draft, Howie Roseman even said, we tried to trade up even higher than this to go get him as he started to go down the board. He had that shoulder injury that he has had surgery on, and if he's good to go, man, what a 1-2 combo in the middle he and Zach Bond can be for Philadelphia. In the second round, they took Andrew Makuba, the safety from Texas. Fourth round, Ty Robinson. Fifth round, they had three picks: quarterback Mac McWilliams, linebacker Smael Monda Jr., and then center Drew Kendall. Sixth round, three picks as well: Miles Hinton, the offensive tackle from Michigan; Cam Williams, the offensive tackle from Texas; and then Antoine Powell-Ryland, the edge rusher from Virginia Tech. Our staff gave this one an A. It felt very Philadelphia-esque. I think that you can see impact players throughout this entire draft class, and the kind of bets that were made later in the draft, you look at and you go, damn, Philly's got a chance to develop these dudes into some studs with the coaching staff that they have and their track record over the last couple of years. What did you think of Philly? We gave them an A. What did you think of their draft?
It's fantastic once again. I think did I see on one of our PFF Twitter handles that this is the fourth straight year we've given the Eagles draft something in the A range, at least an A minus. I think it's the fourth straight year, and I mean it just goes to show you why they've been in two of the last three Super Bowls. They won it last year. Obviously, they were clearly the best team in football because even the guys that just fall to them naturally in these drafts, perfect fits for their team. I mean, we don't know what Nakobe Dean's situation is at linebacker, but at this point, now you have Jihad Campbell to go with Zach Bond. That's incredible stuff. I mean, and you talk about the key to Vic Fangio's defense is being able to stay in those two high looks and stop the run with six in the box. You're going to be able to do that with Jihad Campbell now, next to Bond and that great D-line. Andrew Makuba, I know you're a big Sidney Brown guy, but I think Makuba has every reason to think he can compete for a starting spot alongside Brown, and you'll see both of them play, obviously, at some point. Ty Robinson, really good athlete, I think fits in, especially when they reduce down to five-man looks. Smael Monda is, obviously the Georgia Bulldog. They had to take one in this draft eventually. And then, to me, I love their last two picks in this draft. Max Chadwick was talking about Cameron Williams being really a third or fourth round player that they got in the 6 rounds, got to develop as a pass rusher, but get him into Stoutland U down there, and he's going to have no issue eventually. That's the perfect developmental tackle to have. And then, as if this team didn't have enough pass rushers, I'm in love with Antoine Powell-Ryland. I think for 20 to 25 snaps a game, if that, I think that role that they were looking for Bryce Huff to give them last year, even though they paid him a lot, but really is a situational pass rusher, I think Antoine Powell-Ryland could do that. Jalix Hunt did it coming from the FCS level last year. I think Powell-Ryland at Virginia Tech, one of the most productive pass rushers over the last couple of years there. 14 sacks this past year. He's just a really darn good pass rusher, and even if he gives you nothing in run defense, they have enough other guys for that. They can just throw him out there 20 snaps a game and just keep that 4-man rush going without blitzing. They didn't blitz a single time in the Super Bowl, and it sure looks like they're not going to have to a whole lot this year either.
All it takes is and I understand this is much easier said than done, but all it takes is two elite draft classes back to back for you to just set up your team exactly the way that you need to, especially if you draft those, if you, in those two drafts, you are heavily hitting these primary positions that have a lot of positional value. Because when you look at their offensive line, obviously it's one of the best in the NFL. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, who was just stepping in for Mekhi Becton, and then Lane Johnson. And then behind them, they traded for Kenyon Green, who's a former first-round pick. And look, he hasn't played anything like a first-round pick, but you take a flyer on him, so you trade for a guy like that. You already have Trevor Keegan there from the Michigan program, and now you're taking a chance on Cam Williams and Miles Hinton. Also, they signed Holland Pierce as a UDFA as well. So it's I love what the Philadelphia Eagles do on the offensive line every single year, because they take these flyers on these players who could just be absolute gold for them. And I wonder why these other teams don't do it. And the reason why these other teams don't do it is because they have to be more wary of the weaknesses of these players. The Eagles don't. The Eagles don't have to look at Cam Williams and say, Yeah, I mean, he's not the pass protector he needs to be. The footwork is too heavy, ton of penalties last season. All they look at is massive offensive tackle, very gifted in how he moves for his size. We'll figure out the rest. We'll see what he's like once we get him in camp. And it's the same thing with Miles Hinton, too. Chris Hinton's son, former All-Pro offensive tackle, just a guy who is built like he's in a lab to play offensive tackle at the NFL level. He just didn't really have great anticipation. The feet looked heavy there for him. He wasn't the mauler that you would think that a player of his size would be. And so it's like, all right, yeah, you gotta, if you're any other team, you got to think about the weaknesses there because you're probably talking about a guy who has to be depth for you. Philly doesn't need that. Philly does not need you to be a depth player. They're just taking a bet on these guys and seeing if their athletic potential can win out. So love this draft from Philly. I think that they not only have a great idea, they have not only a great finger on the pulse of what makes a great prospect, but also understand their identity and where their roster is very, very well. That's why Howie Roseman is one of the best at this. I like the Mac McWilliams pick as well. It's kind of funny, like seeing his name as the fourth one off the board, and then you have like Drew Kendall, Cameron Williams, Smile London, Antoine Powell-Ryland, who I could have made arguments that maybe all of those guys would go in front of Mac McWilliams, but somebody plays very feisty. I think he can play inside now. A little bit more of a slender build for a corner, but I love his attitude. I love his competitiveness. I think he's going to be great in that cornerback room. Anything else on Philly before we move on to the Commanders?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Philly right now is the best draft and develop team in the league, and I think it shows with a lot of these day 3 picks that they made that even if they develop into role players like Powell Ryland, like McWilliams, like Smile Munden, they continue to hit the nail on the head here. I mean, it's just so good the way that they can take these athletes, take guys with flaws like you mentioned, and work to their strengths and work around that. Maybe even a guy like Cameron Williams, maybe they feel like he can move inside eventually, maybe play that right guard spot long term where it's kind of open right now. So they just do a great job of acquiring talent, developing it the right way in the building.
Shopping cart in the chat says being friends with an Eagles fan has never been worse. It's true. Probably gets worse every year, to be honest with you, for how well they draft and how good of a team they are.